Hey everybody, we are back from a long absence and we're very sorry about that, but we've got plenty of fun stuff to talk about and plenty of stuff coming up. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Dawn, and this is Roll for Initiative.
So today we want to talk about the sometimes witty, surprisingly wary, and super winning Savage Worlds. This was kind of a fun one-shot that ended up becoming a three-shot that we decided to pick up. It's a generic role-playing system, and we had a lot of fun. Now, it hasn't replaced any of our main campaigns or systems that we used, but it's something that I think we'll probably keep going back to for fun, short little interludes and breaks from our main game.
So Savage Worlds is a generic rule system that was written by Shane Lacey Hensley, and it was published by Pinnacle Entertainment in 2003. The system emphasizes fast prep and quick play. It's not really a system you'll want to go with if you want realism or a lot of detail in your system, but it's a really good generic system.
So the system uses points, and you kind of allocate them among your regular attributes. There's 6 of them. They're agility, strength, vigor, spirit, and smarts. And once you go through the book, it's pretty easy to tell what those take place of in your other types of campaign settings. It really makes sense once you get going. What's really neat about the system is that as you put points into those different attributes and different skills, it increases the number of sides on the die that you roll. So not very many points means you roll a d4, whereas it goes up to d8, d10, increasing the number that you could roll whenever you make a check, say to make sure that you spot that orc up on the hill, or to weld the dermoplast plating onto the side of your spaceship. Like we said, it's a generic system, so it's really fun because it can fit in any kind of world that you want.
With the dice, there's something called Async. This is where if you roll the highest number on your die, you get to re-roll that dice. So if you need to make a skill check and it's, you need to roll a 5, but you only have a d4, you do have a chance of making that check. Now most checks in Savage Worlds are 4. You have to get 4 or higher. If it's a more difficult task, it's going to be higher than that. And if you get 4 over a target, it's called a raise. So that means not only did you succeed, but you did something above and beyond what the basic check was.
And essentially, it's how you're able to hit a critical success. Now, with our setting of Savage Worlds, we decided to get away from the kind of sword and sorcery high fantasy that we normally play, and I ran a campaign that was set in space. It started off with everyone having some role aboard a mining spaceship that was sent off to a moon off of Neptune, I think it was, in order to survey the planet. Now, things were turned on their heads when they arrived at the moon, and lo and behold, there was a secret sleeper operative agent for the government who had commandeered the vehicle because a secret science project that had gone awry years ago and the government covered up had suddenly reappeared. Now, this was really fun for us because not anyone on the crew was very happy about it.
So my character had to convince everyone else on the crew to complete the mission and head back to Earth.
Like we said earlier, Savage Worlds really is centered around creating the characters quickly and fast gameplay. Since it was our first experience with the game, I went ahead and created all of the characters ahead of time. There were 6 or 7 different characters to choose from. Each of the players had a quick description given to them of the different characters, and they picked one that they thought it would be fun to play. We filled in some details, I took people in the other room, we fleshed out some of their backstory, but it took me maybe an hour and a half to generate the 6 different characters, and from showing up to starting the game probably only took us about 45 minutes total, and that's getting their characters, coming up with any extra backstory, and having a quick explanation of the world setting that they were in given to them. So really it is a very quick system just to jump into.
The way that we got to personalize our characters that Ryan handed off were with edges and hindrances. Edges are the little things that give you bonuses, special abilities. For example, my character was a jack of all trades. So I could make attempts at a whole bunch of different things I didn't have a skill in, but I didn't have the penalty to make an attempt to try it. And hindrances are kind of negative traits. So my character's hindrance was that I was a bit of a conspiracy nut. So my character believed that aliens were real, which created some fun things when we showed up and things were wrong with the ship.
Two areas that are detailed very well in the book are their use of magic, which they just call powers, and combat. Now in our setting we didn't have any magic, and there was no combat that was used in our setting. It was really built around much more the idea of the sort of space horror movie where they very rarely, or if at all, saw the monster or the big bad of the campaign. It was mostly psychological hallucinations and the characters ultimately all turning on each other and blaming each other for what it was that was going wrong. Now when that happened, instead of just having people using laser pistols or going at each other melee, it usually was resolved with one character locking someone out of an airlock or flushing them into space or falling 50 or 60 feet to their death in a hangar bay. So with magic and combat, it's detailed really well, but it's something that we just never had to use, which ultimately for 4 player deaths, it's pretty neat that combat was never involved.
We did use initiative a couple of times. One of them was when the ship was going through a comet tail and parts of the ship were malfunctioning and we had to act really quickly. So there was an initiative to see, did we get to act before something else broke? Now the way that initiative is handled in Savage Worlds is with a deck of playing cards, and everyone gets handed out a card and it goes from highest to lowest. Once everyone in an initiative round has gone, all the cards are shuffled and played back out.
Another way that Savage Worlds uses a deck of cards is to help with the storytelling. Now within the book there's detailed what they call interludes, and it, in theory, works really well. When I first read it, I was really excited. The truth is the interludes in play don't really work out, and here's why. What's great about the interludes is it's a way of really making storytelling happen, making character interaction happen. Depending on which suit from the deck you draw, the character's supposed to tell a story about their life, either relating to a love that they have, or a moment of victory, or some kind of crushing defeat in their past. And that sounds great, and it really is. When those moments come up organically in a campaign, it's really, really wonderful. Unfortunately, when the game master just says, okay, now you're all sitting around having lunch. You draw a card. Now talk about your long-lost love. It doesn't work as well. Now within our group, we thought that what might work better is at the beginning of each session, having everyone roll a die. If it comes up in a certain range, that means that they will have to have an interlude. If it doesn't, then they don't. And then before the game even starts that day, they draw their card. So at some point during that day's campaign, they would find a way to bring up this story. That helps a little, and it really does make it feel much more organic. The interlude system is a great idea, and with beginning players, just like the Savage World systems, the interlude is a really great way of introducing those people. But for your more veteran and experienced players who are just looking for kind of a one-shot day with the system, it doesn't really work. It almost works, but not quite.
The system has what's called wildcards. So these are your player characters as well as significant non-player characters like the big villain or someone who's going to have a major impact on the campaign. The wildcards get an extra die, which allows them to roll a 6-sided die along with any skill check, and they get to take the higher of the 2 die.
The other thing I really enjoy about Savage Worlds is that it is set up to be very broad and generic, but that's a really good thing. Savage Worlds can be used to tell stories that are set in space, or set in the Wild West, or high fantasy, or the future where the undead have come back, or ancient Rome, but dragons rule instead of Caesar. You can really kind of do whatever you want. A way that they facilitate that is by having a really broad and generic set of skills. For skills, it's just computers. It's just piloting. It's just repairs. Instead of having to get into the nitpicking of, well, you know how to hide in shadows, but you can also use a disguise, and you can fake an accent, and you know, so many different campaign settings and rule systems out there. There are just hundreds and hundreds of skills and knowledges that you can choose from. It's actually pretty nice that the generic qualities within Savage Worlds allows it to be applicable to whatever's happening at the moment. The trade-off is the detail's not there, but a somewhat experienced player group and GM can find those details in the broad sweeping strokes that the system uses.
I think this is a really great system for introducing somebody to role-playing. The core book is not that big, so it's really easy to read through the whole thing and not get overwhelmed. Also, because it focuses on storytelling rather than on a lot of mechanics, it's really easy to pick up, and it doesn't involve a whole lot of math, so it's not intimidating for a new player to sit down and just create a character in less than an hour and start a game right away.
So if you're thinking of getting into role-playing, or you have a friend that you want to introduce to role-playing and maybe the system you use is a little too intimidating, or if you just want to take a break from your Shadowrun or Exalted or Pathfinder or what have you, Savage Worlds for $10 is the core rulebook, and it's an easy way of just having a quick 1-session or maybe 2-session campaign and then get back into your other systems. Or using some of the pre-established systems that Savage World has and having that be your main system. There's really a lot of options.
Those are our thoughts about Savage World. It's a great system for a fast campaign that's really easy, and you're not worried a whole lot about a realistic setting.
Alright, so thanks for joining us again. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and to share, and we'll see you next time on Roll for Initiative.
Goodbye!